Welcome, folks. Thanks for coming along to tonight's virtual tour. It is of Carnmoney Hidden Cemetery. So on your slide now, there are a couple of the headstones that I'll be talking about tonight. I'm talking about 20 different headstones. And so thanks to History of Ulster for facilitating this talk, and also thanks to members of the Northern Ireland Family History Society for tuning in tonight. And it'd be remiss of me not to mention about the History of Ulster. Have got lots of lockdown lectures or talks that they've had on, so you can see a lot of those on YouTube. So well worth checking out. History of Ulster YouTube channel. So where is the hidden cemetery in Carnmoney, and why is it hidden? Well, there are actually 5 graveyards in Carnmoney. So opposite, this is the church graveyard, the Church of the Holy Evangelist, and opposite that then is the entrance to Carnmoney Hidden Cemetery, Hidden Graveyard, sorry. So you'll see there that photograph was taken on Saturday. You can see there, you can see Napoleon's nose in the background, and then the next photograph is half an hour later. You can't see Napoleon's nose, and it started to snow as you do in April. So that's the entrance to the hidden cemetery, hidden graveyard, sorry. There are a number of other cemeteries in Carnmoney. So there's 5 altogether, all linking on to each other. So there's also the Jewish cemetery, which is nearby, and if I remember, I'll show it in the background of one of the slides. And then there are also the Carnmoney West and East sections, the more modern sections. So say there's 5 cemeteries up there are 5 burying places up at Carnmoney. So this one is actually the extension. The hidden graveyard is actually the extension to the church across the road. But until recently, it was very, very overgrown, and then it's been tidied up. Still quite overgrown, but it's been tidied up significantly relatively recently. So we'll be mentioning the Northern Ireland Family History Society book about the hidden graveyard at the end of this tour. So what I'm going to do is go through 20 headstones that I think are interesting in the hidden graveyard. The first one then is this one, and you can see it to the left. It's there's been a column there, and it's fallen. You can see the column liner beside the tree. But if you look in that photograph to the top right, you can see there's white railings, and that is into the Jewish cemetery. So you'll see then on the close up to the right of the headstone, it commemorates Alfred Edward Crawford, in loving memory of him, TCD, Trinity College Dublin, youngest son of Henry Crawford, formerly of Coleraine, born at Coleraine, 25th of December, Christmas Day, 1860, died at White Abbey, 13th of April, 1883. This monument has been erected by a few of the many friends to whom his brilliant talents and happy disposition had endeared him, and they regret the premature demise of one whose distinguished career in youth gave promise of such a glorious future. And then quotes at the bottom, "For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth." That's a sad one. About he was only 22 when he died. So this is the next one. It's hidden under trees. It's quite hard to get a good photograph of it, but it says they're erected in loving remembrance of Arthur Clotworthy Walkinshaw, quite a score and scrabble, only child of the late Clotworthy Walkinshaw, Esquire, civil engineer, born at Odessa, Russia, November 18th, 1868, died at Ballyhone, March 8th, 1884, aged 15 years. And again, I'm quoted very bottom. Be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, Son of Man cometh. So Odessa is the third most populous city in the Ukraine, and it's a major tourism center, seaport, and transport hub located on the northwestern shore of the Black Sea. It's sometimes called the Pearl of the Black Sea. So you'll see there, the photograph on the right is Odessa in Ukraine. So he was born there, and he died at the slightly more mundane location of Ballyhone. It's an electoral division of Glynn in the barony of Belfast Lower in the county of Antrim. So another sad story about Arthur Clotworthy Walkinshaw. He died aged only 15. The third slide then is this one, and you'll see there it says erected by the associates and members of the Girls Friendly Society, St Mark's, Ballysillan, in loving memory of Mary E. Alexander, who died at Liganeel, 27th of January 1886, aged 21. And that to the right is the St Mark's, Ballysillan, still going. It's on the Liganeel Road. So that's all I have to say about that one. Well, sadly, she was also quite young, 21, when she died. The next one then is just as you go into the graveyard on your left. This is the burying ground of the Protestant Orphan Society for the counties of Antrim and Down, established 1886. It appears, though, that there's certainly only one committal commemorated on the headstone here, and that's the William James Riley, died 27th of August 1887, aged 8 years. So it's a quirky little, it's not a little headstone, a quirky headstone in the cemetery, but it's puzzling in the graveyard. Puzzling why there's only one person certainly commemorated on the headstone. The next one then is, you'll see to the left, sacred to the memory of the Reverend John Henry Smythe, MA, rector of Ballyclug in the Diocese of Connor. So that's Ballyclug, Church of Ireland, there to your right, on the right. That's just outside Ballymena. He was born on the 30th of September 1914, departed this life 4th of September 1887. He was the eldest son of the late Reverend Samuel Smythe, for more than 40 years vicar of this parish. Samuel Smythe is vicar of Carnmoney from 1808 until his death in 1849. And his son, George Chichester Smythe, he succeeded his elder brother John as curate of Carnmoney in 1843. And after his father's death in 1849, he carried on the work as curate in charge and vicar until his death in 1903. So it was largely due to the efforts of Reverend George Chichester Smythe, who I think is buried in actually the main graveyard, and his generous financial support. The present handsome church was built to replace the plain post-Reformation building, which was unsuited to the modern needs of the parish in those days. So that's the Smythes. The next one is quite hard to read because, again, it's under trees. Erected by the members of White House Presbyterian Church in memory of Anna Davison, principal of White House Infant School, died October 12th, 1901. And the first says there, she hath done what she could. And also interred, it also says at the bottom of the headstone, interred here also her sister, Margaret, dear Auntie Meg, who died 30th of April 1968, sorry. And there to your right is White House Presbyterian Church. And what I know about that church is that they hold a regular car boot sale, or what they used to anyway. It's on the Shore Road. The next one is this one, a bit of a jaunty angle, and it commemorates William R. Greenlees, accidentally drowned in Belfast Loch, 27th of June 1896, aged 23. So my thanks to Nigel Henderson for giving me the information about this particular grave. William Greenlees and William Morrison, both from White Abbey, hired a boat with the intention of rowing to Carrickfergus back on the 27th of June 1886. They're both seen in Carrick about around tea time, but when they failed to return home by midnight, a search was launched for them with the upturned stern of their boat sighted about a mile offshore. Greenlee's body was found in an upright position within the boat with a rope entangled around his arm, but there was no trace of his companion. According to the obituary in the Belfast newsletter of 29th of June, both men were in poor circumstances, Greenlees being employed in the stables of Captain McCabe, MP, and Morrison was engaged as a labourer. Greenlees leaves 2 children, whilst Morrison also leaves a little child, is what it said in the newsletter, 29th of June 1896. So it's a sad story about a drowning. There'll be another drowning mentioned shortly as well. And you'll see the ship's anchor there at the top of the headstone. This is the next one, again, a broken or a fallen column, sorry, but that is a bit of a close-up of the column, and it says on there, in loving memory of Robert Hill Littler of Tareen, Chichester Park, Belfast, who died 4th of April 1900, aged 54 years. Also his wife Margaret Hoy died 4th of April 1886, aged 36 years. Also his second wife Marianne Docker Littler, who died 3rd of December 1883, aged 47 years. So it says Tareen on the grave. So Tareen is actually in Chichester Park at the junction of Salisbury Avenue. I'm not sure if it still exists to this day, but it was there back when the Littlers lived there. Robert Hill Littler was a member of the Belfast Naturalist Field Club, and that is not people who take their clothes off. That's people who are particularly interested in nature, etc. Belfast Naturalist Field Club. So he was a big cheese in that club. The next one is this huge headstone, but you can see about in the middle, it commemorates Captain John Bracegirdle, who departed this life 23rd of June 1900 and was interred on the island of Curacao, Dutch West Indies, aged 43 years. In 1845, so that's what it says on the headstone. In 1845, Curacao was one of 6 Dutch dependencies in the West Indies that were brought under collective administration as the Dutch West Indies. Those dependencies were reorganized as the Netherlands Antilles in 1954 and granted autonomy in internal affairs. No doubt, if I've pronounced a lot of that wrong, a certain Ian Henderson will correct me. So the next one is one with a connection. The next 2 are actually connections to the shipyard. This is the first one. Again, you can see the column there has the top of it's fallen off, but the photograph to the right says erected by the shipwrights of Queen's Island as a token of respect and esteem to the memory of James Saunders, foreman shipwright, who for 43 years was their faithful comrade and friend, died 4th of February 1903, aged 58 years. So I don't really know an awful lot more. I don't know anything more about James Saunders, where he lived, etc. So that's, but it's interesting to note that he's recorded, it was erected by the shipwrights of Queen's Island as opposed to Harn and Wolff. So I think that those guys were kind of freelancers almost, employed by Harn and Wolff, but they were actually, they would have said that they worked at Queen's Island. So the next one also has a connection to Queen's Island, because this is this grave, which is the Murphy grave. And you can see there the plaque on the right says the family burying ground of R. Murphy, Belfast, 1910. So I'll talk about the second Robert Murphy who's buried in that plot first. He was that's Robert Murphy Senior there to your left. He was employed in Harlan Wolff as a rivet counter, and on 13th of June 1911, Robert was crossing a plank gangway on SS 401, now Titanic, or then Titanic, afterwards Titanic, when the board suddenly parted and caved in. Robert Murphy Senior fell 50 feet and landed on the tank top, dying as a result of the injuries received. Along with other victims of the building of the Titanic, SS 401, Murphy is commemorated on a memorial plaque at the Harlan Wolff Welders Club in D Street in Belfast. So you'll see there that plaque, photograph of that plaque on your right. So you'll see Robert James Murphy is the fifth person. So he's the top on the second column. So it commemorates 8 men, but sadly only 5 of them are known. The first one is Samuel Joseph Scott. So Eastside Lives did a project which uncovered the fact that Samuel Joseph Scott didn't die on the building of the Titanic. So if you've Google Jeanette Lunn and see what that story, Jeanette Lunn and Titanic, and you can see what the actual story of that is. Very interesting story. John Kelly, for example, is buried in an unmarked grave in the city cemetery. William Clark is buried in an unmarked grave in Carnmoney West Cemetery. James Dobbin is buried more or less in an unmarked grave in the city cemetery. And then there's Robert James Murphy. Sadly, Murphy's death was not the first for the Murphy family, as Robert's son, Robert Jr., had previously met a similar death whilst working on Titanic's sister ship, Olympic. He fell 60 feet to his death on the 6th of December 1910. So as I mentioned there earlier, the only marking on the grave states the family burying ground of R.J. Murphy, Belfast, 1910. So that's a man who, his son died first whilst building the Olympic, and then he himself died the next year, basically essentially 6 months later, working on Titanic. So I think it's a great shame that there's nothing to say that those guys, nothing really to link those guys to Titanic or Olympic at their grave. So again, that's the grave there. So the next one then is another particularly sad story. It's practically impossible to get a good photograph of this, as I've proved. But it says on the headstone, it's erected by a few subscribers in memory of William Boyle, aged 10 years, who gave up his life 5th July 1914, successfully saving 2 companions from drowning at Twin Island. William lived at 1 McCabe's Place, which is down near Brown Square. He went down to the Twin Islands to give a dog a swim along with George Gray, 13. He was his next door neighbour at 3 McCabe's Place, and David Logan, who was aged 9, and he lived at 22 Wilson Street. When the 3 boys were there, down at the Twin Island, they made a raft with pieces of driftwood. Gray and Logan got on the raft, which was pushed further out into the tide by other boys, who then ran away. George and David were carried out from shore, with the raft capsizing 20 yards from shore. And William Boyle, who was a non-swimmer who attended Brown Street National School, rushed into the water and threw his friends a plank each, which enabled them to struggle to the safety of the shore. Sadly, William Boyle was now out of his depth, and he also reached for a piece of driftwood. He grabbed a plank at one end, however, the other end reared upwards, striking him in the face and knocking him into the water, leading to his drowning. The coroner, who said that boys would be boys, not particularly helpful, added that Boyle had acted in a most heroic manner. So again, thanks to Nigel Henderson for giving me that information. So about that sad story about William Boyle. So this is the next one again, given thanks to Nigel. This commemorates the McGills, and two sons of Hugh McGill and Agnes McGill, née Kennedy, of 2 Fedora Terrace, Shaganil Avenue in Belfast, died during the Great War and were commemorated on 2 family memorials in this graveyard. Agnes McGill died of pernicious anemia at Jersey Street in Belfast on 24th of June 1884, just under a month after giving birth to their last child. Hugh McGill was a foreman in a tobacco factory, perhaps Scallagher's. Then he remarried Jessie McGrath on the 14th of December 1898 at Cliftonville Presbyterian Church. So Hugh McGill Jr. was born on 16th of January 1887 at Woodford Street in Belfast and was serving as a private in the 12th Duke of Lancaster's own Yeomanry Battalion, Manchester Regiment, when he was killed in action on 26th of August 1918, aged 31. He's commemorated on the memorial in France. This Artois Memorial in France. Alexander, his brother, was born on 28th of May 1884 at Lower Sydenham and was a corporal with the 10th Battalion Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders when he was killed in action on the 27th of September 1915, aged 25, and is commemorated on the Loos Memorial in France. So they're just commemorated on that headstone top left as Alexander McGill, killed in action 1918, and Hugh McGill, killed in action 1918. So it doesn't even give you the day or the month on the headstone. That's why you have to engage with Nigel. He'll get you the information in exchange for a German biscuit and a coffee. Nigel has sent those photographs through, and there was that headstone also commemorates the brothers, but it is no longer there, so I don't know where it is gone. But it's sadly not even in the undergrowth now, because I checked. So that headstone bottom right has now gone AWOL. So it's a long way from Carnmoney Hidden Graveyard to Trimulgary in India, but you'll see there that commemorates Duncan Reid, Bombardier RFA, Royal Field Artillery, accidentally killed in Trimulgary in India, 6th of October 1921, aged 24 years. Trimulgary is a locality in the city of Secunderabad, north of Hyderabad district. But you'll see there also commemorated in that headstone is Alec, who died in hospital Sydney, New South Wales, 16th of July 1932, aged 37 years, as well as Archibald, died 1st of June 1940, aged 73 years. So just on that headstone, as well as Agnes Reid, who died at the top there, who died 12th of April 1901, aged 5 years. So you'll see it then on that headstone. There are fatalities in India and Australia. So the next one is one that certainly jumped out at me, I think, when Nigel maybe showed me it first time, and it is a particularly sad story. It's this one here, and you'll see about halfway down, it commemorates Minnie Cunningham, and enjoying health and happiness was put to sleep on 20th of April 1927 at the RV Royal Victoria Hospital, aged 27 years. So speaking to Larry, the caretaker of the graveyard, he said that there's a couple of different reasons for or suggestions for that led to Minnie's death. He said that it could have been they were experimenting in operations using iodine, I think it was, can't exactly remember. And Minnie was given too much, whereas there's other theories that she was actually given this at a party. So I don't know if which is true, but sadly it led to her death, relatively young age, 27, in 1927, 20th of April. So also commemorated on that headstone are Joseph Cunningham, who died 29th of March 1906, aged 10 weeks. James, who died 22nd of July 1916, aged 2 years. Nettie, who died 23rd of November 1918, aged 20 years. And Isabel, who died 8th of October 1927, aged 12 years. So there's an awful lot of younger folks buried in that grave. But I say it's particularly striking when it says that Minnie died whilst enjoying health and happiness and was put to sleep. Sad story. This is the next one. This is Hamilton Conacher, CBE, and it says in his headstone, he was born on May 17th, 1881, and who on November 3rd, 1939, having served his day and generation with a steadfast mind, died as he had lived, in the quietness and confidence which was his strength, and which is here remembered by the many who loved him. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. And then if you look at and his wife is also buried there and commemorated in the headstone, in dear memory of his wife, Margaret Roy Conacher, who died 10th of July 1948. So you'll see the crest a bit closer up there on the right, and at the bottom it says Audacitor et Feliciter, which translates, according to Google anyway, as boldly and swiftly. Hamilton Conacher, CBE, was the permanent secretary of the Minister of Labour in Northern Ireland when he received the CBE in 1926. So 4 more to go. This is Commonwealth War Grave. This commemorates Robert Alexander Kane. You can see their second engineer, SS Fairhead, died 5th of May 1941, age 50. And then below the cross, then it says on the headstone, it says, "Until we meet again." He was the husband of Agnes Kane of Fort William in Belfast. And SS Fairhead was a cargo steamer of 1,718 tons, built in 1907 by Barclay, Curry and Company in Glasgow, as originally it was called the Zealand. In 1914, 1918, in other words, during the Great War, she was detained in Germany. In 1919, she was acquired by Leith, Hull and Hamburg in Leith, funny enough. And in 1935, she was then purchased by the Ulster Steamship Company. On the 5th of May 1941, she was fatally damaged by a parachute bomb at Dufferin Dock in Belfast. She was beached then at Bangor and then demolished or taken apart. So this is that should be, but it's not, a photograph of the SS Fairhead when she was struck in Belfast. So a victim of the Belfast Blitz, but they were actually on a ship when the SS Fairhead when they died. I'm now puzzled where the photograph has gone. So the next one then is another Commonwealth War grave, and this also commemorates victims. That a plaque on the left commemorates victims of the Belfast Blitz. You'll see there it says the family burying ground of Henry McGee. So 4 members of the McGee family of 20 York Park in Belfast died during the air raid in May 1941, but none of them are recorded on the Commonwealth War Graves Commission civilian war dead list. Henry McGee had married Jane Oliver on 6th of May 1882 at Fort William Park Presbyterian Church, In 1911, the family was living at New North Street, and Henry was a shipyard labourer. Two of their sons served in the Great War. James McGee was serving with the 5th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles when he died of pneumonia at a military hospital in Belfast on 21st December 1916, aged 17. And you'll see then of his Commonwealth War grave there to the right of the photograph. Another a brother of James, Henry, so in other words Henry Jr., was wounded serving with the 15th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles and was serving with the 2nd Garrison Battalion Royal Fusiliers when he was discharged due to war-related sickness on 14th of December 1918 with the Silver War Badge. The Belfast Civil Defence Authority's lists for May 1941 recorded the body of Henry McGee Sr., who was 74, was taken to St George's Mortuary, whilst the body of Anne Jane, who was 75, was taken to a mortuary at the Belfast Union Infirmary, whilst the body of Henry McGee Jr., who was aged 4 and he was a son of Robert and Mary McGee, was taken to the mortuary at the Mater Hospital. An unidentified adult female found at York Park was recorded as being admitted to the Royal Victoria Hospital with serious injuries, and a later list identifies this person as Margaret McGee, aged 46. Henry and Anne Jane McGee died on their 49th wedding anniversary, with the 4 members of the McGee family interred in this plot on the 8th of May 1941. So that's another sad story with the 4 victims buried in that plot, but not actually very well commemorated. So again, thanks to Nigel Henderson for letting me know all that information. So again, they're victims of the Belfast Blitz. I'll maybe mention the Belfast Blitz at the end of the talk, which is coming up shortly because I've only got 2 more to do. And I think I know where the photograph of the that other ship is gone. Fairhead. This is you'll see this unusual kind of plaque at this grave in loving memory of our dear son William H.Y. Heath, born 10th of December 1903, accidentally killed on HMS Renown 29th of January 1932. Yes. During the Second World War, Renown participated in the Norwegian campaign of April to June 1940 and the search for the German battleship Bismarck in 1941. Renown was briefly assigned to the Home Fleet and provided cover to several Arctic convoys in early 1942. The ship was transferred back to Force H for Operation Torch and spent much of 1943 transporting Winston Churchill and his staff to and from various conferences with Allied leaders. So she was scrapped in 1948 after the Second World War. But sadly, William Heath died as a result of an accident there on the HMS Renown in 1932, and he was only 28. You might have guessed, the next photograph then is of the SS Fairhead. They will learn me, as they say in East Belfast, for not doing my preparation properly. So I saw a ship and I fired it into the wrong grave. That's the SS Fairhead after it was damaged during the Belfast Blitz on the 5th of May 1941, which led to Robert Alexander Kane's death. Thankfully, it was the only fatality, which is quite fortunate when you look at the destruction caused by that strike. So the last headstone I'm going to talk about, the 20th one, is this one, in loving memory of my dear parents, Thomas and Wilhelmina Rankin, died as a result of an accident, 26th of January 1950. They were both aged 48. They lived at Windy Ridge at Ballycastle outside Grey Abbey, and were killed when their car skidded, overturned, and crashed into a wall of a house in Market Street, Newtonards. Thomas was a foreman of Burn House Limited in Belfast, with death notices including from the officers and brethren of Old Stone Masonic Lodge number 56. So I haven't quite worked out, well, I haven't worked out at all, in fact, why they, whilst living down in Ards, are buried in Carnmoney. So I would imagine that they hailed from, particularly as he went to the Old Stone Masonic Lodge, I would maybe imagine that they hailed from County Antrim, from the dark side. So you'll see there that also, sadly, their daughter died only 4 years after the death of her parents. So quite a sad story. So that's them. I want to plug the Northern Ireland Family History Society's Hidden Graveyard Tour book. Still available apparently. So I must get a copy myself. So it provides much more information on the hidden graveyard than I've only done a little summary tonight. I'll also mention another book. This one, a forthcoming one of mine, 2020, obviously due out last year, and it is, I keep on saying it's due out within the month, but hopefully it's due out soon. So it features 20 different graves, in each of 20 different cemeteries throughout Northern Ireland. So, for example, there's 3 different graveyards feature in Bangor. Movilla also features, Derry City Cemetery features, Drumbeg, Carnmoney Main Cemetery features. Well, sorry, Carnmoney does feature in the 5 different cemeteries. There's graves in each of the 4 cemeteries, not the Jewish ones, sorry. So it features in that book as well. That's all, folks. Your suffering is now ended. Thanks very much.